What's going on, everybody? My name is Josh Hip. I'm the Performance Director of Kenwood Dealer Group in Lebanon Ford Performance, and I am back here. We are at KDG. We're at a new location here today, and we are back for our third installment of our LFP podcast. So today I am joined by Mr. Steve Narde from ROUSH Performance, who has been our regional manager for ROUSH Aftermarket Products for, 4 years now?
I think so. I think
4
it's
years.
3 years now.
3 years, yeah. So Steve's been with us since right after LFP kind of started taking off, almost.
Correct.
Literally that year, I think, is when you started. So we're going to get to learn a little bit about Steve today, a little bit more about ROUSH Performance, which is the premier partner of Lebanon Ford Performance. We've been with ROUSH the longest. They are our biggest partner. We do the most business with ROUSH, and we'll talk a little bit about what all that entails, and then we'll get to some new ROUSH products maybe that are coming out that Steve can tell us about, and we'll take some questions that we got over social media. So Steve, why don't we learn a little about you, a little about where you've come from, kind of like college, how'd you get into the business, married, kids, stuff like that.
Sure. So that's a lot to chew off. I'm an old guy now. I'm 36. So, but I've always, I feel like it's just in my blood. I've always liked cars and the car business. And, but from a very young age, I think I got that from my father. His first car was a 1966 Corvette.
Oh, nice.
Grew up in upstate New York, and he drove all the way to Detroit to buy it.
Wow.
I think it was $4,000 back then. 66 Stingray, brand new.
Wow.
Of course, he doesn't have it now. So
Right.
and that that just kind of seeped into my blood back when I was younger, and just tried to stay around that in knowledge base. And as I grew older and went to college, you kind of want to always just be in the automotive industry. I always thought it was really sexy and so on and so forth. So I actually interviewed for a district manager position at Chrysler in the Northeast Business Center.
Okay.
I think that's what they still call it now. Essentially calling on a small group of dealers, about 20 dealers, in about a 2-hour radius from my house, and essentially more or less selling them their allocation, making sure Chrysler hits their allocation targets, also doing some of the marketing stuff with them, not really training or anything like that, which is a pretty cool job right out of school.
Yeah.
You don't have, a whole lot of training that goes into it. It's really just on the fly, and it's just a lot of relationship building, similar to what we do now, but more in a corporate role and less fun, if you will.
Yeah.
So that was my first kind of foray into the automotive business, and unfortunately, when I started working for them, was when the economy started going down.
Gotcha.
So I got out of that. Did a small stint actually in the retail world while I was kind of in transition and where I was going to decide where I was going to move to, and then moved down to Austin, Texas. Worked for Dell Technologies, now Dell Computers back then, for a small stint as an inside sales guy on the government side.
Oh, wow.
So kind of learned a little bit of a new business, tech role, so on and so forth. Which just wasn't for me. Just in the office every day in a cubicle setting, just a little bit underemployed, if you will, back then, but I was happy to be there at the time.
Right.
And then as soon as I found a way out, that's when I ran for it. So I saw a job opening for ROUSH, and a good friend of mine, Taylor Bloor, who
Yeah.
I called him about it. I said, what's this job here? And he told me, and I said, well, that seems like what I did with a Chrysler, except for a little bit expanded, a little bit of a different role and a different approach. And shortly thereafter, my boss at the time, my soon-to-be boss, Steve Ford, had me up to Michigan in the dead of winter. And needless to say, I think I was on my way back to Austin, and he was like, you're in. You got hired. I'm
That's
like,
awesome.
Oh, cool. I wasn't even home yet from the trip. So I was so excited. And this February will be 9 years at ROUSH for me.
Wow.
All in the same role as a regional sales manager, which I love. It's just every day is different. Our business is so different because we're not, a Chrysler, a Chevy, or just in Ford in general. It's not that. We're different. We're not for everybody. It's not in every dealership. There's a lot of passion, as behind our business. It's not just a standard 9-to-5 suit and tie type gig.
Yeah, and that's the one thing that I love about ROUSH is just that it's a different approach. We deal with like the and we have some really great Ford reps. Don't get me wrong, but we deal with the suit and tie of Ford sometimes,
Sure.
and it's nice. It's a little refreshing that Roush is just a little bit more relaxed. Though they are a corporate business. I mean, they are a big company.
We are,
Roush
yeah.
Performance is very much a they just bring a little bit different appeal, and it's very fun.
Yeah,
to
we
be a
sell
part of the
fun.
team.
We don't sell, starched white shirts and,
Right.
and ties.
Right.
That's not our business. But we've
Realizing that was
it's been-
backwards for the last
oh,
15
no.
minutes.
That's not good. Now we got to get the polishing cloth to go over it
Again.
But we've always I've loved it ever since I've started, just because it's every day is a new challenge. Every day is different. You deal with a lot of different personalities on a daily basis. There's some ups and downs. Don't get me wrong. It's not all gravy. We definitely have to work for it,
Yeah.
as you know. But it's just it's a really cool environment. I think some of the people that we have in place there that are in the management positions are, they're really poised to take the company to the next level in the next few years,
Yeah.
which is pretty exciting to see.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's how you've always been an RM with Roush, but you've only been in this region for like 3 years. Where were you? But were you in the Austin, the Texas region before?
Nope. So I moved from Austin to Chicago when I got the job at Roush. So I had
Okay.
the Midwest region,
Okay.
but at the time, Taylor had
He
was
was
an
our
RM, but he was on the East Coast, and his region stretched as far west as Ohio.
Oh, okay.
So when he became the VP of sales, that's when they kind of broke up his territory
Sure.
a little bit, broke up some of the territory down the East Coast, and kind of Ohio slid to me,
Gotcha.
which has been awesome, obviously. Met a lot of new people,
Yeah.
and you guys, obviously, and the business is the best in the whole, in my territory in the state of Ohio.
Yeah.
So-
Two big dealerships for Roush here, two top 10 dealerships, us
Yeah.
and Montrose Ford
Correct.
here in Ohio, which has
Yep.
been great. So
Absolutely.
and they're a good competitor of ours too, and we actually we have a good relationship with some of the guys there. That we know, though we have competition between the two of us, we
Sure.
are able to communicate fairly easily. And we have customers in Northern Ohio and they service there, and they have customers in Southern Ohio and they service with us, and
Yeah.
it's been great. It's a nice relationship there. So I want to talk a little bit about how Lebanon and Roush hooked up. Obviously, that was under the Taylor Bloor time of him being our
Mhm.
rep, but how that came to be, and the previous employee that reached out to Roush, and really kind of just tell people how does a dealership become a Roush dealership, and what does it meant? How's our relationship? How do you feel, and how does Roush feel our relationship has grown since?
Wow, that's a heavy question, Josh. I got
I'm-
a lot of lights on
I'm
me, and you're
put a-
asking. No, I'm just
putting it on you. All right,
it's all good. So, to answer that question, I guess in the 30,000-foot view, Charlie, who initiated the program at Lebanon back in 2012, 13,
Yeah.
around that time frame, just before my time in the state of Ohio, I guess he had reached out to Taylor and wanted to become a dealer and kind of put a business plan together and so on and so forth with Lisa. And Taylor came down, did an initial visit, so on and so forth, and just kind of grew with it. I think they started out with the vehicle side, and then when the whole 39,995 promotion came along,
Yeah.
which back then, what was the horsepower for?
It was a Roush 670. So we advertised. Well, Phase 2 was out at that time, so we didn't drop it until after Phase 2 hit. So it was 727 for 39,995. Was
Right,
the
and
original promo.
So that took off overnight.
Yeah.
And you guys went from, how many phone calls were you fielding?
I think the first week that we were fielding, and of the ones that actually we could actually pick up, I mean, we were in the hundreds, if not thousands. And then, I mean, we literally had missed call. I mean, every single phone in the dealership, missed call.
Yeah,
Missed call.
just nuts.
Yeah, I remember me picking up the phone, and I wasn't even in sales at the time. I was doing accessories and being the performance advisor. I would pick up my phone. I would miss 10 phone calls before I put my phone back down.
It was crazy.
So it was
I
nuts.
just remember seeing, the parts numbers that you guys were putting down back then were just out of control.
I think there was the biggest month that we did 28 Phase 1, Phase 2 installs in a month. So I mean, that was wild.
It's really crazy. But the broader piece of that question, how to be a dealer, typically, we're always looking for partners. We're in about 150, I would say, active Ford dealers across the country, and I think there's just shy of 4,000 Ford dealers nationally, somewhere in that neighborhood. Now, granted, we don't want to be in every store. That's really not our formula. We try to partner with stores. You have the thing is just like yourself and in the crew at Lebanon is there has to be passion behind this business. It can't be, okay, great, we stock a couple of cars, we put a couple of parts on the shelves, and if you build it, they will come. It doesn't work that way
exactly.
in this business. So we really try to look for good dealer partners, try to feel them out, see if they can hit our metrics. We have, as you know, we just changed a few months ago having specific metrics for dealers to be able to remain a Roush dealer moving forward and to foster that relationship. We've put a lot of different pieces in place, as you know, with social media and dealer training, 2 different teams that come out. So that's what we do. And the cool thing is we're not a franchise. So it's got its pros and cons, right? It's just, you know, a dealer can say, I don't want to be a dealer tomorrow. And then there they go. Or, you know, the opposite, but which allows us in the dealer for tremendous flexibility. But at the end of the day, it's not the dealership. It's the people that work in the dealership that make the program what it is.
100%.
It's, I mean, if you look at any of the top 10 dealers that I send out monthly, that list, most people, if they're in the game at all, they can associate a name with each dealer.
Right.
You know, Tyndall Ford, Lyle Sturgis,
Yeah, exactly.
Montrose Ford, Dan Russell. Like, you just know who the players are.
Yeah.
But, you know, that's the difference between some of those dealers and some of the dealers who are, you know, trying to climb their way back up, if you will. So that's kind of the different thing about Roush. It's not, you know, we're ultra low volume on the vehicle side. Of course, we have a robust parts business as well.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I mean, you have to have a little bit extra. You don't get the free content from Ford that they just patch you. You have to have that passion. You have to have social media. You have to do, you know, the proper advertising and AdWords and things like that are going to make that dealership successful and grow. And the cool thing is it's fun.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not selling just a tip. No offense to the Ford brand, of course, but you're not selling just the commodity vehicle that you have one every 50, especially in Cincinnati. I think Cincinnati actually has the second highest concentration of Ford dealers outside of Metro Detroit.
Yeah, we have a lot of dealerships.
Which I believe that's a true statistic. So you've got something different that, you know, the next guy down the road doesn't have.
Yeah.
Which prevents, you know, a lot of the race to the bottom stuff that exists in this business.
It's crazy how many dealerships that you actually think about are in our area.
There's a ton.
I mean, I've been to LA and there's literally like a handful of Ford dealerships in LA, Galpin being obviously the biggest one.
Sure.
But the reason that Galpin is so big is, one, there's a ton of people in LA and there's not a million dealerships. So
it's almost like every exit there's one.
If you
take 275 and go up and down 71, you'll be able to see or get off of and be at a dealership within 5 minutes of almost every.
And
exit.
the difference between like that and LA is it might take an hour to go.
It takes an hour to get
in LA versus Cincinnati.
So
it might take 10 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. And there's not that many dealerships. So I mean, that's probably a good factor as to why some of these dealerships in these other cities become so vast, is because there's just not a high concentration. For some reason, at some point, Ford said Cincinnati is going to be the market to put a bunch of dealerships in.
Yeah, I don't know where that came from. I'd like to find the history. I'm sure it goes way, way, way back when. You know, but it's strange to me if you just type in Ford dealer Cincinnati and you get the Google result. It's just dotted. The whole map is dotted. And if you really extrapolate that out to an hour, I mean, there's at least 30 dealers.
I know there's a couple stores that are like on the bubble, like they may eventually lose their ability to their Ford badge at some point, but which may be a good thing for the city. Honestly, you know, it
could be a good thing for the brand.
Could be a good thing for the brand.
We went through that when I worked at Chrysler. The whole downsizing of taking some dealers out and so on and so forth. But there was the standards back then weren't what they were today.
Right.
They weren't. You know, they were working out of an old, basically glorified coffee shop type place.
Gotcha.
They sold 5 new cars a month. Weren't really holding their weight. It didn't make sense.
Right.
So they consolidated a lot of that stuff, which I think is better for the brand,
better
for the customer. I mean,
yeah,
you know,
it also enhances the experience that a customer is going to get.
100%.
You have a million different things, places doing the same thing. It's a race to the bottom. You know what I mean? If you hold some pride and you have an exclusive product, if you could call it that, because there's less dealerships, then the quality goes up. I mean, it's no different than, you know, the service that we provide at Lebanon Ford, you know, specifically Lebanon Ford Performance. You know, in the beginning of Lebanon Ford Performance, there was us and there was nobody else.
Mm-hmm.
So we gave top tier. I mean, we're given, and not that we still do, we are given just top tier, and the experience you're getting, everyone was just, you know, you couldn't get that experience anywhere else. And it's been a little bit diluted because of how many people have gotten the game. But then because it's still a very exclusive market, there's a handful of dealerships that are good at it, and they're all over the country. Those dealerships are excelling, whereas, you know, there's going to come a time that every dealership eventually maybe gets smart, and then it'll just be, you know, you'll have these these pockets of great dealers, and then you have all these dealerships that are just floundering
Sure.
and selling one supercharger a month, whereas you'll have Lebanon that'll consistently sell 200 a year. So
Exactly.
so yeah, that's cool. And then so as you can see, we got a little trophy down here. This is the second trophy that we've had 2 years in a row. We've had this. This puts us at a top 10 Roush distributor of parts. We're actually number 1 in parts
Correct.
for 3 years running.
Correct. Yes.
And then the 3 years ago, we were number 3 in the entire company. We were a
Correct.
top 3 dealer.
Which is parts and vehicles, combined on the wholesale side of the numbers,
Yeah.
which is a little different than how like a manufacturer, or I should say like a Ford would do awards, so to speak. But that's kind of how we base it off
Yeah.
of. So you guys right now are still in that top 10,
Holding it.
which to me is, it goes back to the whole passion, the people.
Yeah.
Because obviously, for those who have never been to Lebanon or the store, it's a small store. It's a destination store.
It really is.
It's not the big suburban store off the side of the highway.
Yeah.
Which traditionally I found in my experience at Roush that stores that are your size or a hair bigger seem to be the optimal size store that's successful with our brand, because you will find someone that has passion.
Yep.
And also there's the ability to focus and grow the brand versus a bigger, huge volume store that's just turn and burn and just doing all that volume.
I mean, at some point you get so big that you just can't control it.
Right.
You know what I mean, you're so big you just can't run it to the standard in which you want. Right.
And I find too that the bigger stores typically have a higher amount of turnover than a smaller to medium sized store, which plays into it. For a brand like Roush, you're one GM, one good salesperson away from a dealership just floundering.
Yeah.
And to have someone to be able to pick that stuff up, be right there, like a store with you guys is phenomenal. For a bigger store, it might just go by the way. You might go in there 1 week, and then 3 weeks later you're back in, and you might see a whole different sea of people.
Yeah, I mean that's how it is.
That's what our challenge.
That's how it is
comes
around
in.
like the big like the stores that surround like the metro area of Cincinnati. You walk in one day and you'll see a new face, new salesperson almost every time you're there. Where if you walk into Lebanon, literally, I mean, though we have brought on some new people as of recently, just because we're expanding our staff, we're not replacing anybody.
Sure.
The only people we're replacing are the people who have retired. Literally, we've got people who have been in Lebanon Ford before it was even Lebanon Ford, going back 20, 30 years with almost with Kevin McClellan, who was with Charlie Watson Ford when it was the original Ford dealership. So I mean, he's been around that dealership for
that stuff's awesome.
great
That's
part of
so
his
good
life.
to see.
Yeah.
That's a rarity in the car business in general. I mean, that's
to stay
that's
in one
an
place like
extreme
that.
Rarity.
Yeah.
And to have like for Lebanon to have a multi-generation
multi-generation. I mean,
family
you've
store.
got Kevin and Nico, who was on the previous episode. You've got me and my father. You've got brothers and sisters, cousins. I mean, I mean, you've got all kinds of just multi-generational. It's a family business, and I think that's what keeps Lebanon's culture so great, is that we know each other, we treat each other like family, we try to treat our customers the same. And I think we're a little bit more willing to go the extra mile because of that culture.
It absolutely is that.
Than the high turnover culture in some dealerships where, look, this guy's gonna be gone tomorrow. Whatever he sells, and then he's gone. You know,
I mean, I see that as a regional person who travels around to 9 states. I see that at your store consistently. It's how people treat you when you walk in the door. To just our business meetings, it's a different standard than I would say the generic business meeting.
Right.
With probably a non-top performing dealer, but at the end of the day, I mean, when that's how what makes business great.
Yeah.
Is people will come to your store for that reason.
Oh, for sure.
They're not just shopping to find the lowest price and the worst post-sale service, because there's so much of that in our business.
I agree.
It's worrisome, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and it truly is. So let's talk about a little bit more. Let's talk about what what Roush is. Everyone knows that we're a big Roush Performance dealer. Let's talk about what Roush is as a whole. I mean, because it's a massive company.
It is. Roush is a massive company. We're a global company. We're headquartered in Livonia, Michigan. Roush Performance is technically in Plymouth, which is right around the corner. I think we're over 5,000 global employees at
Wow.
ROUSH, and Performance is technically, I believe, it still is the smallest overall division, but ROUSH Industries, the parent company, if you will, started by Jack Roush back in 1976. That was when it was Jack Roush Performance Engineering. Just really kind of morphed into being a tier one engineering supplier to not only the big three, and then just morphed into other avenues in other lines of business, entertainment, the defense industry, aviation industry. Of course, the two consumer brands that I call consumer brands would be ROUSH Performance and ROUSH Fenway Racing, our NASCAR team.
Yeah.
Everyone knows us for that, but the majority of our business is from the global side is through the other channels of the company. We've made roller coasters and painted.
That's pretty crazy to think about.
Rides for nameless clients, I should say. Made carbon fiber seats for different roller coasters. Just there's so much. It's really cool to see it, and I've worked there for almost 9 years, and I feel like I haven't even seen half of it.
Well, when I went up, so we went up for. You had me up. God, it would have been 2 years ago now.
It was in wintertime.
Maybe 3 years ago
I remember
now.
it was snowing.
Phil and I came up for
February. It was probably about 2 years ago.
It would have been 2 years ago. We came up and did a tour of just a couple of the facilities. I mean, we saw the ROUSH Performance Garage, which last time we were up there, Trevor said you guys are actually going to be moving to a new facility coming soon, potentially.
In the next year, I believe.
Yeah, and then we saw a couple of the other buildings. We saw the collection. We saw the aviation shop. And, I mean, it's just wild to see some of the other stuff that's being produced up there. The aviation shop was amazing. I mean, these 10 guys in a room rebuilding old, World War II fighter jet engines.
Rolls-Royce Merlin engines, I believe. I believe it's the only or one of two shops in the entire world that's certified to rebuild those.
Yeah, and it was just incredible. It was so meticulous and so in depth of what goes into one of those engines.
It is. At the end of the day, we're an engineering company.
Right.
And that's just, one part of it. And of course, Jack Roush himself having that's kind of his aviation is part of his hobby as well,
right,
which I think kind of leads the charge as far as why we're so successful and why we're such a big part of that community. But I've only actually been in that building once. It's kind of cool. I've walked through there. I'm like, holy cow, these enormous hulking engines from 75 years ago.
Yeah. Well, and to give some perspective too, your warehouses are spread out all across Livonia, so it's not in one position.
Is it like 100 buildings?
I don't know the total count. Yeah. I know ROUSH Performance, our headquarters is quote unquote codenamed B79 for Building 79. I know that sounds so creative, but that's what we are. I believe we're moving to another building at some point here in the not too distant future that you alluded to, Building 50, which we were in there maybe 10 years ago, 12 years ago, right before I started. So that building is actually on Ford Road, which is kind of cool. It's right down the street from, I believe, the one of the transmission plants in Livonia. That's where our composite facility is right now. Our composite shop that they do all the composite stuff for some of the entertainment enterprises, just stuff that I don't even know about. It's just that all the flaps that are on every NASCAR team's car. That I believe they slow a car down when they crash. Yeah, it kind of flips off the roof. Every team, whether it's GM, Toyota, or Ford, they're all made by ROUSH.
Dang.
In our shop in Michigan. The cool thing is Jack is extremely patriotic, and we try to keep as best we can labor and materials sourced from U.S. based,
and that's a big thing that you have over some of your other competitors that build. We'll call them serialized products.
Sure.
A lot of it's made overseas. And that's a big thing. I mean, every single ROUSH vehicle has an American flag on it, and I want that in itself is a real big thing. I love it. It's probably my favorite graphic that you can get on a ROUSH vehicle. But it's just nice to see that most of it is try to, as much as you can, is produced here, and that puts obviously people to work and keeps it all in house as much as possible, which is great. Where you see some of these products, and the quality is better in my opinion. I think the quality you can control the quality a little bit better. And then when you get some of these mass produced, even just when you look at fender flares, you get fender flares in a box from the other side of the world. They're half of them are not well put together, and some of them are. So,
and that's the thing. I mean, we're in an Amazon world, what we live in today. There's that global marketplace where everyone's trying to find something cheaper, but the satisfaction level isn't necessarily going to be there with it. So when they get a product that's like, an aesthetic product from us, I think that, you're going to pay for it.
Yeah.
But I think you're going to be happier with it in the long run. And of course, it's all warranty backed and tested and so on and so forth. I mean, for example, our signature grill that goes on our F-150 that you can only buy with a serialized vehicle, we don't sell it as an aftermarket part. The tooling costs for that are in upwards of $1 million for every time we change that. So we had it from 15 to 17, and then 18 to 20. That grill will be on the truck. So that's $1 million of, all the engineering and all the tooling and the raw material and the makeup and so on and so forth.
Just to make it.
It's a grill.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I mean, which is pretty cool. I mean, we're making that here in the U.S., but there are other companies that are probably, they're farming that stuff out overseas, and it's, very cheaply made, and you get what you pay for. I'm a big believer in that. I've been put in situations where you buy items, I'm sure everyone has, where you skimp on it, and you get what you pay for.
Exactly.
At the end of the day.
Exactly, 100%. So we talked about obviously Roush Fenway, and obviously Jack Roush having a big enthusiasm for racing. How long has the Fenway team been around?
So we were Roush Racing first. Fenway came in. This was before my time, so my history timeline might be not as accurate. I want to say it was 2007, 2008 in that realm. I don't know if Hannah's doing any fact checking over there, but it's somewhere in that neighborhood. So Roush Fenway stands for obviously Roush, and then Fenway is the Boston Red Sox owner John Henry.
Oh, okay.
So he's partnered with Jack, and then they have the race team is kind of is an entity together. I think Fenway calls theirs like John's Enterprises or Fenway Entertainment or something like that. So we're the winningest team in all of motorsports.
That's good.
26 championships in total. It's been struggling a little bit now. NASCAR's a really, really challenging sport, especially these days. You're fighting for sponsorship dollars, all that stuff. It's just, I don't know it as well because it's technically not our business. Roush Fenway is a separate entity, but it's a very, very difficult business.
I mean, from what I understand, the racing business in general, there's more money that goes into getting the car to the race than there is to be won at the race.
That probably makes sense.
Yeah,
I don't know how we can verify that, but that probably makes sense.
Because I don't think the purses for these races are that massive.
And they don't talk about that.
They don't ever talk about it,
which is weird. Like PGA, like golf, you see about the Masters is. It's
you see the trophy and the check. You see the purse on top of the leaderboard. You see the purse, and then at the end you see the check and the trophy.
Yeah.
But when a guy wins a NASCAR race, he just won a race.
It's a little different because you have the manufacturer, you have the team, and you have the sponsors.
Right, and then
and I'm probably forgetting some other caveats in there, but at the end of the day, it's very complex. You have a lot of moving pieces. You have a lot of money that's getting floated from different areas. And it's a very, very difficult business to be good at consistently.
Well, each one of those cars is worth, a ridiculous amount of money.
They have several of them in case they wreck off the bat. But, Jack is a tireless worker. I've never met anybody like Jack. I mean, I was so intimidated the first time I met him back in 2000, probably my rookie year, as I say, 2011. At a Jack Roush appearance at Ray Skillman Ford in Greenwood, Indiana, and we picked him up from the airport, my boss and I at the time, and I was just, was so much younger back then. It's just like, oh my gosh, Jack Roush is coming. But, we were doing this autograph session. It's about 2.5 hours. Jack comes and meets with the business owners and the players at the dealership, and then he goes out and signs downstairs and then signs vehicles, walks the lot. He will sign every car. Yes. I was there once with him. It was 106 degrees. I thought I was going to pass out.
Yeah.
And Jack is now, I believe Jack is 76 or 77. This was a couple years ago. But I'm like, do you need water?
Yeah.
I'm walking next to him. Nope, I'm good. I mean, he signs everything. And he wants to get to know everybody. He wants to be connected. He talks to the people. We were running late. He had to get back because he had to fly directly from Indy to the racetrack. I can't remember. This was late July. And a lady drove up in a Kia Soul and was a huge Jack Roush fan and was like, will you sign my car? And everyone else was like, oh, no, come on, we got to go. And Jack's like, yeah, I will. Absolutely.
That's awesome.
Wow.
So he like stopped and signed this girl's car and had like a brief couple-minute discussion with her so we could get him some food packed up on the plane and ready to go.
Wow.
Like everyone else was just absolutely beat tired and Jack's just kind of I mean, I'm sure he's tired, but it just shows you someone who's spent their whole life working tirelessly and they've made it and that's still in his DNA to keep going.
That's when you just know that's just who he is. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
It's probably not at all for 1 second work for him. It's just built into who he is.
He travels, I think he used to anyway. Just a couple of years ago, he was traveling upwards of like 250 plus days a year.
Wow.
Which that's a lot of
that's hard,
man. Living out of the suitcase. I mean, I travel a couple days a week here and there, and you think that's tough. But, I mean, he's got an enterprise to run.
He does. He's got a big business to run, a huge business. And then Jack Jr. obviously came on. I know that Jack Jr. went to school and then started his own company at one time and then decided to come into Roush.
Yes.
So he wasn't necessarily like going to follow right off the rip. He went into electrical engineering.
IT, I think.
IT.
I think Jack Jr. owned his own IT company, I believe.
Yeah.
I think he went out to school in Colorado. I don't know if he was out there post graduating for a little bit of time.
Yeah.
But he's back into the fold. He's in our office pretty much daily.
That's great.
He's had a lot of different roles. He was our brand manager for the Roush brand. At one point, Jack has a lot to do with Jack's main role now, from what I understand it. He's doing a lot of voice of customer.
Mm-hmm.
What can we do better from hearing from the people who buy our products to our dealers? Because at the end of the day, in my role, you're my customer. A dealer's my customer, my first line. So Jack is very, very involved in getting a lot of that feedback and, developing plans around how we're going to attack, making things better. Jack's always trying to further the brand. He's recently reached out to several different valuation tools to get our vehicles in there.
Which I think would be a huge
we're
step.
in Blackbook now. He's got meetings set up with several other entities that we're looking to do that as well. And that's a lot of legwork for him.
Honestly, if the vehicles get into KBB and NADA, that puts you on an OEM level.
Right.
Granted, all of your quality is OEM level. It's right on or better than Ford standards.
That's where he wants to head with it. But you gotta love Junior. I mean, you met him a couple months ago here for the Nightmare commercial. He's just an everyday kind of guy, and that's
definitely
the Roush family in general are very just unassuming, nice people.
Yeah.
They're not the flashy, got 10 bodyguards around me and 6 gold chains.
Yeah, he was super approachable. And then when we came up for Trevor, we met him at they had like a little
You're so competitive.
a little autocross day. What?
So competitive.
Who? Jack Roush
Yeah.
Jr. Oh yeah,
Oh, yeah.
Trevor and Wright and Junior were going at it on the autocross course. And, and Junior was of course just
we all know who that
beating his
won
brains
that.
out.
Sorry,
Yeah,
Trevor,
I mean, Trevor did everything he could, and then Jack Jr. literally was like, "All right, give me a second."
Yeah, we've done a couple corporate outings when I've been up there where they take us to the go-kart track, and I just watch on the sidelines and just watch Junior he literally looks like he's on a rail.
He can drive.
He looks like he's going to hit the wall, and he just goes out of it, and everyone else is just out there, poking around. He's just
jamming
everybody.
it.
It's just hilarious to watch. I mean, he's a
there
professional
was
driver.
What was the woman there that she actually?
There was a member of the road crew, so it was a 2-day event. They were doing autocross back to back, and then the first day we were there, and it was a little bit of a lighter day. They had only a few road crew people there, and it got bigger that afternoon, but we got there really early. There was this little old lady who was there with her husband, and
she was a huge Roush
fan. Her husband owned a Stage 3, and she's like, "Well, I'd like to go out on the track." And her husband didn't want to take his car on the track, so Jack Jr. was like, "Okay, I'll take you in mine." So pulled up at Stage 3 Ford. She hops in, gives her a helmet, and they literally just jam out, and he just rips it with this little old lady in the track and just rips it around an autocross course and brings her around, and he still beat Trevor's time with a passenger. It was wild. It was absolutely wild. He can drive. Very gifted driver.
That's what Jack likes to do. It's not work for him if he's doing ride and drives or he doesn't. Okay, I'm sick of this. I'm gonna go sit in the corner and drink a bottle of water, have someone fan. He's not. He's an everyday kind of dude.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, why people respect him more.
Definitely.
Having his name on the building, he's not in charge.
Right.
At our building, he's not in charge. I mean, he respects that, he's not. I mean, it's really cool to see that. I don't feel like that in another business that's a privately held company, it would be like that. I don't, especially being a second generation.
Yeah,
technically.
I think the environment is great. I think that every time I'm up there or talking to you about it, it just seems like the Roush family is heavily involved in the business. They're not taking back seats and collecting checks. I mean, they're very casual about it. They're not sitting at like Jack Rouse Jr. is not like sitting at president of ROUSH Performance. You know what I mean? He is obviously, though he's heavily involved in multiple aspects of the business, he's not sitting there just saying you're gonna do this. He said it's very much a team environment.
It absolutely is.
So and I think that's different from a lot of family-owned corporations where the family that's actually employed by the business kind of dictates how it runs.
Sure.
And everyone else listens because their name's on the building.
Yep.
Whereas at Roush, it is not that way. They're very much involved in just being we're going to make this the best company it can be together.
It's 100%. You're 100% right on that. And I've had the ability to see that over the past almost 9 years now. And I mean, everyone always says, "Oh, is Jack really involved?" I mean, Jack meets with Ray Gallagher, who's our president and general manager at ROUSH Performance, I think weekly.
Yeah.
When it comes to the design aspects, Jack's over at our design studio, giving his input for what he likes, because obviously, his name's on the car. It's a lot of our cars are heritage pieces,
right?
So he's giving his input.
Right.
This isn't just slapping a couple stickers on the car and calling it Jack Roush's vehicle. It's way beyond that.
No, I mean, I remember seeing the Boss 429, the SEMA car.
Yes.
Which was it a 429 or 729?
729.
729. I remember seeing it in CAD, and literally when we went over to the clay studio, literally the car is all there in clay, and you have half one version of it and then half the other version, and you can see where you guys modeled two options that are left or right, and you guys melded it into both, and that became the SEMA car.
Yeah,
which eventually became the Stage 3 almost.
Which is really cool. That clay studio is one of my favorite places to visit.
I've never seen a car in clay until that one. Literally full scale to size in clay with wheels on it, and the whole car is just made out of a big clay block. It's wild.
I think we're one of only a handful of studios that have a 1-to-1 clay studio.
It's an amazing studio, and then you guys had like the stages of it up on the wall where you could see the storyboard of the clay and how it developed, which is wild.
Yeah, that's all the behind the scenes stuff that we as an engineering company, we're not standing on a table telling everybody that story, but that's where everything really happens.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that Roush needs to tell people a little bit more about is show the behind the scenes stuff, because that's
people love the behind the scenes.
People love to see how look at all these shows of like how this is built or stuff like that, where people only watch it just because they want to know like how this like Bic pen came to be, like that stuff fascinates people. I think that's something that there's so much that goes into creating a Roush Stage 3, a Roush product, that not enough we don't see that enough, and I think that's something that Roush I hope to see more of.
I think you will in the future. That's something that we've all kind of been given our feedback on, just because we think it's competitive advantage to be a company like us. It's not only on the parts side, but on the vehicle side that has a turnkey product.
Yeah, I think you bring Hannon up there. I'll come up there. We'll mic up. We'll shoot a little content. You know what I mean? We can make a little web series, little behind the scenes at Roush web series.
We could probably throw Trevor right in there.
Trevor be in there, yeah.
That'd be a good combination.
It'd be a strong video.
Yeah. Not to go off tangent, but the number one podcast right now, which only has one episode, is called The Office Ladies, and it's Angela Kingsley and Jenna Fisher from The Office talking about BTS. They're going through every episode of The Office and talking about the BTS stuff.
Wow.
So, yeah, people love BTS.
Tune in that. So you're speaking of number one podcast. My best friend growing up started a podcast with his little brother called The Caveman Media, where they just talk about like current events and sports, and they are the number one listened podcast in all of the United Kingdom.
Dang.
And they shoot it in his bedroom, in his house, with like him and his friends, and all they do is talk about American sports and American events. And enough people in the United Kingdom started listening to it that they're number one
Wow.
in the United. It's nuts.
That's awesome.
It's crazy. This
That's
is what
wild.
kind of content just like blows up these days.
Well, I think it has to do with authenticity.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways.
But it's making you human.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
used to listen to a lot. I don't know. I've obviously I get a demo, so I listen to Sirius all the time, but I listen to podcasts a lot at the beginning, and then
yeah.
just kind of became pain in the butt downloading them, running
Right.
over your data, this and that. But
I've been listening to this one from the guy who runs the clothing brand Young and Reckless, Christopher Drama Path, who actually grew up in Akron, grew up in Ohio with
cool.
his cousin Rob Deerdeck, who is one of the greatest skateboarders of our time. He owns Deerdeck Enterprises, or the Deerdeck Machine, where
It's massive.
you remember Robin Big and the Fantasy
Yeah,
Factory
yeah,
on
yeah.
MTV. So his cousin Drama started a clothing brand, which became Young and Reckless, and now he does a podcast weekly. It's called Short Story Long, and it's all like just like hyper intelligent motivational speakers, scientists, entrepreneurs, people that come on there. Like he had Gary Vee on there. He had Jordan Belfort from The Wolf of Wall
Oh,
Street.
yeah.
He literally had him on there. So people like that, and that's the stuff that I like to listen to. Just like super like. They kind of get you like fired up.
I've got to get back into it now that I'm on this.
There's so much good. Now that you're
I
on,
want to hear myself
Yeah.
talk.
you gotta be in there. You gotta be in there. Okay, one other thing we're gonna talk about specifically about Roush Performance is everyone knows what a Roush Mustang looks like, but Roush is in the last 3 years, become heavily involved in F-150 and now Super Duty and Raptor and the coming soon Ford vehicles. One, what led that charge for Roush? Because I think that you guys are more commonly known as a truck company these days that
Sure.
also sells Mustangs. And then I want to talk about a little bit about like future Roush. So like what's next?
Sure. So yeah, everyone knows us for Mustang. That's kind of that's our halo vehicle now.
Right.
But I think roughly close to 80% of our business, especially on the vehicle side, closely relates to truck. Not just because we have more truck offerings, but the popularity of the truck in general around the body itself is just
It's just a bigger market.
gotten
honestly.
so popular.
Yeah.
Absolutely, and let's face it, Ford puts a lot of money into the truck market
Yeah.
as far as incentives and things of that nature that help you obtain the Roush vehicle a little bit easier. They put less money on the Mustang, and it's more utilitarian.
Mm.
You can drive a truck 12 months out of the year. We're in Ohio. Obviously, you guys get snow.
Right.
You can't do that with
Can't
a
drive a
Mustang.
Mustang
And you're
year-round.
going to pay the same amount of money for it in a lot of cases. If you have
Yeah.
a loaded Stage 3 and a loaded supercharged Roush vehicle truck, it's going to be almost the same
Equal
money.
money.
So the Mustang buyer is very, very dearly loyal to Mustang.
Yes.
They're always going to buy a Mustang. The truck buyer, not so much, the car show person, the people who really want to be noticed. Typically, what I'm finding in my experience, that's not a truck buyer. But what the truck buyers do like is they love the performance and they love something different. Because when you do drive by a lot of dealers, you just see a sea of trucks. And so I think in someone's mind, they're looking for a little bit of uniqueness. And that's kind of what we bring to the table
Yeah.
on the truck end of it. With having, several different models from F-150 to Raptor to Super Duty, all on those different chassis. But we've had some trucks in the past, probably going back 15 years ago, when trucks weren't as big for us. They were more of the, the sprinkling on the top, if you will. And now that whole thing is 180 completely.
Yeah.
And but since in my tenure over the past 9 years, we started back on the Raptor, I believe it was, in 2012. We were literally doing just a supercharger, some graphics, some other
Yeah.
interior touches. And it was about 575 horsepower Raptor back then,
Yeah.
which kind of led that truck market, which brought us to 2015, where we started really doing a turnkey truck with our grill in stuff that made it more like a Mustang, more proprietary parts.
Yep.
That really led that truck market. We had a brief stint in 2015, the back half of the year, full year in 16, and then beyond, and it's just really taken off. We've kept the content pretty light, and the
Yes.
price point we think pretty lucrative on that truck market. That it's not a huge stretch to obtain a Roush truck on an F-150.
I agree.
Which I think that's really, and it's in my opinion, it's tastefully done. There's a lot of stuff out there that's a little, in my opinion, over the top.
Yeah. There's lots
Not
of
for
that.
everybody,
Yeah.
but that price tag reflects that too.
Yes.
So we're going to come in a little bit below some of the other competitors that are out there.
You look
but
at like
it's
the
tastefully
Hennessy.
done.
You look like the Hennessy, the Tuscany trucks, the stuff like that. That's serialized by them, if you want to call
Sure.
it that. But it's really it's more of a post title thing. It's not necessarily like some of it's post title. Like Hennessy, I think is all post title.
I believe so. Yeah.
I think Tuscany they buy out of bailment, but it's still a little weird there too.
So anything it's my understanding, anything that's like supercharged or where the engine's modified, those other companies, it's post title.
Post title,
which
yeah.
essentially means they're selling it to a customer as a used vehicle. Yeah, so we're a bailment company through Ford Motor Company, which bailment is we get our chassis from Ford. We order F-150s, 250s, Mustangs, Raptors directly from Ford. They ship them to us. Once we get an order from them, from a dealer, a retail order through a dealer or a dealer just stocking units, then we can turn them into Roush built vehicles.
Right.
So we're technically an MOR, which means manufacturer of record. So anytime we touch a vehicle's powertrain and supercharge it, which is our primary delivery process, force induction for modifying the powertrain, we have to go through all the same government testings as a manufacturer.
Yeah.
So we have to go through the EPA, we have to go through CARB, which is California Air Resources Board. We have to go through all these steps, which costs us. It's very, very costly, but we believe it's necessary, and that's the competitive advantage that we have. I always talk just some little nuances that people don't really realize is when we add seats to a Roush vehicle, if the order calls for upgraded Roush seats, we have to test those seats to make sure the occupancy sensor still works correctly in the event that there's a small child in the front seat and the airbag does not deploy. So we have two machines in our facility that are $250,000 a piece, one for truck, one for Mustang.
I know, it's wild.
That's just, so we have to go to that nth degree, which takes our dealers out of harm's way and make sure that our customers receive a quality product.
Right.
And that's just some of the stuff that I don't think people really understand
That's
or
part of
see.
That's part of that backstory stuff. You know what I mean? That Roush truly is engineering to OEM or above OEM quality on everything to make sure that it runs and operates as if it was a standard Ford vehicle, though obviously it's a much more elegant, much nicer, exclusive vehicle. But they want to make sure that it operates so that you don't feel any of that. Sometimes when you get stuff modified on your car, like obviously most people watching are going to be an enthusiast. So when you modify and sometimes you choose the cheaper route and it just doesn't feel the same. You know what I mean? Like choosing let's talk about like suspensions, choosing the $500 suspension over the $3,000 set of coilovers. You can tell the difference in the suspension.
Yeah.
So, and that's the difference between Roush. You got it. You've got a regular F-150, you have a Roush F-150 that is way nicer, quality is better, OEM to the same standards, and it's just a nicer vehicle overall.
I remember when I first started and I was, some of the training was coming on and they were talking about how we switched our graphics. We had a lot of warranty claims for, I guess, just vinyl graphics, just kind of drying out, chipping and cracking. This is back in 2011. And being in the engineering company we are, it would just caused a huge stir. I mean, we're talking about graphics, right?
Right.
We switched our entire process and how they're actually, made and the materials that we chose. And they're actually like a paint impregnated vinyl or something around those lines.
Wow.
And it's just like, people, what? Like, how does that? And we actually ended up testing it in the cold weather in Minnesota and in the hot weather and in the hot climates in Arizona.
Wow.
To make sure that this was going to be good. And so we tested it, to the liking of 5 years or whatever in Arizona sun or Minnesota cold, and to make sure it was going to touch everything in between, which the majority of our cars are probably in the in-between. But we test for the extremes to see where something's going to fail, which we're talking about graphics.
Right.
That's just crazy.
We're talking about stickers.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the level of detail.
The details.
Yeah, it really is. It's really, really cool to see. And this is my rookie year, and I'm just kind of like, my eyes are just going around the room like,
Mine's
wow,
blown,
this is cool. You know what I mean? Like and it gives you, as in someone in my role, it gives you, that confidence to go out and talk to your dealers and tell them and talk to the customers and people you see at car shows and in functions to tell them about the stuff we do to try to make sure that their product comes out what they expect it to be and more.
Yeah, because you're like proud of your product too.
Oh, 100%. 100%. I mean, people that are, in our generation, right? A lot of people that think the average person stays at a position or job, a company for 3.5 years.
Yeah.
I'm going on 9 at Roush, and I mean, it's just,
Mm-hmm.
I've loved it so much, and you see the passion and the leadership and the people behind the product and what we're all trying to accomplish as a team, and it's been phenomenal.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, it's just, just in the 5 years that I've been with Lebanon, Roush has certainly seems to have grown as a company, grown in capability and quality, and just it's just awesome to watch. It really is. One other thing that we've been talking about, we talked about with Russell, and we've talked about with Nico, is the future of vehicles in general, and we think that electric is going to be a big thing. Not only obviously does Roush have a lot of cool vehicle lines that they're going to be coming out with, because Ford is coming out with obviously the Bronco, the return of the Bronco, and all these other SUV lines that are coming out that we're going to see very soon. But what do you think the Roush will get into the hybrid powertrain game at some point? Is that something that's on the horizon? Because according to what's out there in the world, the next generation Mustang, the S650, which is a 2025-26 model, is supposed to have a hybrid powertrain. What do you think on that?
That's actually news to me. In a little, I mean, obviously not the whole hybrid electrification side of the business, but I'm not sure. Of course, when Mustang went to turbocharged EcoBoost back in 2015, everyone thought that was going to replace the V8.
Yeah,
and there was a good 6 to 8 month run on those things, and those things kind of died.
they did.
As far as sales numbers are concerned. The Mustang buyer right now and still wants that the V8. Of course, the V8 has been so heavily improved upon that your gas mileage is better than some of the stuff a long time ago. It's much smaller displacements.
Yeah,
with a quarter of the power.
right.
But no, Roush is always evolving. I don't think we're going to be the people who dig our heels into the sand and say no, we're only going to do V8s. I mean, I know we're going to be doing stuff more into the future, probably, with different systems as far as turbo and stuff like that. I haven't heard much about the hybrid electrification stuff to this point.
Yeah.
But as you know, like I said, I've only seen what I believe is a scratch of the surface of the entire business and where we're kind of at as an engineering company. So I'm sure a lot of that stuff is being worked on and talked about behind closed doors, even with Ford.
I'm sure there's
a lot of stuff that we develop hand in hand with Ford for their own product line.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I know that there's a lot of stuff. I mean, if you actually look at like Ford Performance, we had a representative from Ford Performance down in the shop a couple weeks ago, and the last time I was at Roush, I literally drove by one of the buildings when Hannah and I were there, and you could literally see the Ford Performance logo on the door and Roush's logo is on the building.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's so much that Ford does with Roush, and even Ford Performance is housed technically within a Roush Industries facility. So that's pretty cool. And I think there's so much to look forward to on the Roush brand. I think there's so much that's coming. I'm really interested in seeing what Roush can do with a Bronco. You and I have talked about that many times. I'm so excited for what that could be.
I can't wait till you sign me up for my first demo for the Bronco. I'm just gonna get that thing Mac Daddy'd out.
Oh, loaded. It's
black or white, whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's gonna be the most expensive one there is.
Oh, I can't wait. I'm so excited. And so we're gonna take a couple questions here from. I think we've got one or two that we're gonna take and see what else we got.
I've got a couple that I've just been kind of generating, but I know Tiffany and who was it? Matthew both asked the same question in regards to the Phase 2 upgrade.
Phase 2 upgrade for the 1819 Mustang,
Yes.
I would assume.
Yes.
So Phase 2, from what I understand, we had a national sales meeting that we've been doing quarterly last week. That is going to be coming in Q1 of 2020. This is the thing with the Roush that's both beneficial and frustrating. Is we are sometimes we're never going to be first to the market, and then when we improve upon a product, it kind of goes with the same token. Because we're just meticulously going through stuff. And from my understanding, and talking to actually Jack Roush Jr. about the new Phase 2, is he just beat the living what out of that thing and couldn't find an issue with it. Drivability remained the same. I mean, we're talking about a professional driver, road course, road race driver, versus your everyday person who just wants a little bit of passing power, and to have the power that is our pretty much our customer base. So we will see that here hopefully shortly. maybe even sooner. But my guess would be it's going to be sometime in January is when you're going to see a full phase 2 released.
I'm excited for that. I need that obviously for my car. I'm selfish reasons. I need that.
Sure.
But I'm very excited because the good thing is, from what we've heard about it, it's going to be a good improvement over the phase 1, not only power, but as far as just the overall efficiency of the system. And I think all the phase 1 customers are eager to. You always have the itch, right? I mean, you start at 700. That's never enough.
That's the thing. I mean, we're going to take our time to make sure we get it right. We're not the company who just releases a product to be the first of the party and then have it just implode upon itself.
Well, and firsthand, I've told you many stories of other people that that I've heard of in the market, and even people that we've dealt with in the past that put a product out first and it wasn't the best product it could be. So
that's what people are like, oh, it's ROUSH. You guys should be out there first. Well, we're doing a lot more testing than probably the average competitor that's out there, and for a good reason. I mean, that's just kind of the goal, the standards that we have at our company.
Exactly.
So.
Hannah, what else you got?
I do have one question. So obviously ROUSH is based in Michigan. And I know we've had a couple people, especially talking about with the whole GT500 coming out, how they were kind of upset that like dealers are having them on their lots in the middle of winter when really plants are like you're having to deal with weather. Why did ROUSH decide to have their base in Michigan and not like West Coast where they don't have to deal with weather? This might be a question you might not be able to answer.
So I'm going to go with the simple answer on that. It's Jack Roush lives in Michigan. He's not from Michigan technically.
He's from Ohio actually.
Well, technically he's from Kentucky.
Oh, right. I think so I know he was born in Kentucky, but I think that he
was born in Kentucky.
He grew up in Manchester,
that's right.
Ohio.
He's from Manchester. Not Manchester. Covington, Kentucky.
Kentucky, but he grew up in Manchester. They actually have a ROUSH Day. They've had a ROUSH Day out there for like the last 15 years, and he still comes to it whenever he can and signs vehicles all day.
Yeah, and then he went to college in Kentucky, I believe. So I believe that's the simple answer on that one. I don't know 100%, but again, our business is a portion of the overall industry's business. And Michigan, where it's centrally located, you do have the ability. Obviously, we live in such a global economy now that you're to Chicago, you're to New York, you're kind of in the middle there. If you kind of pigeonhole yourself all the way in California per se, then the cost of doing business is going to skyrocket to ship a lot of vehicles back to the New England states and Florida and so on and so forth. So there are some advantages to being located where we're at, but trust me, we have a lot of indoor space.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I remember when we were starting to release our allocations for the GT500, people were getting upset that like they would be out exposed into the air, and then people don't realize that the Ford plant, they're exposed to the winter elements.
There's literally going to be, people are literally going to, there's going to be a lot of people who post, there's going to be a post, there's going to be like one post that gets viral because it'll be a field of GT500 sitting in the snow at Flat Rock. I can guarantee
I got to imagine, though, those things will have covers on them, transportation covers, I'm assuming.
I don't know. It's 350 hours show up, no cover all day long. That's a $70,000 car, and the GT500 is a $75,000 car entry level. So I mean, your pinnacle car, with the exception of the Ford GT, comes on an open carrier on the back, on the ground level, covered in dirt when it arrives at the dealership. I mean, every single one we've ever gotten was just destroyed when it came in. Obviously, we brought it back to life, but I mean, they literally show up, no car carrier. Your car carrier comes in the mail after your car. Your car cover does. Your car cover.
So that's to the customer. That's not a transportation.
Not a transportation thing. They give you a car cover if you order it as an accessory, but it literally comes to the dealership in the mail 3 days after your car gets there.
And half the time you don't even know that it's delivered until you see your lot.
No, it's in the back. Yeah.
Right.
So hopefully those cars, I think those cars I would expect those cars would be delivered similar to like how a Corvette is delivered, completely wrapped up. You know what I mean? With those nice covers. Even ROUSH was. I mean, you guys were doing that for some amount of time.
Again, we did some experimenting with doing covers for transportation, given dealer feedback.
Yeah.
For some odd reason, some of those covers were starting to micro scratch the paint. So we got feedback from like 2 dealers, and immediately
just pulled them.
Took the whole program down.
Yeah.
And going back to the drawing board to do more research, because that was a request that we got, because obviously regardless if we're in Michigan, you're delivering cars out to California, which we deliver a lot of cars out there. You're going through the Rocky Mountains.
Yep.
You're going through all that. You're going to, New England states. But at the end of the day, I mean, we're shipping our cars just like everybody else does for the most part. And the cool thing is a lot of our cars, especially regionally here for my region, since my region is technically the closest to ROUSH, a lot of them are delivered by ROUSH Transportation, not third party, which is cool because you get a little bit more of that personal touch as well.
Yeah, they're knowledgeable about the vehicles. They know what's going on. They've done it many times. A lot of times if we get a vehicle done and it's set to ship, we'll get it'll ship in the morning. We'll have it by the end of the day because it's just a 3.5 hour drive, something like that, to Livonia. So it's a good thing about being where we're at because our vehicles aren't on the road very long. They show up and they were just loaded that morning. You know what I mean? So they're not sitting on a rig for a long time.
So I think since we're wrapping close to about an hour here, one last question would be for Steve. If a customer was kind of on the fence about, they just learned about the ROUSH brand and they're kind of intrigued, what would you tell them, like, to kind of, I don't know, tip them in the way towards going towards ROUSH?
Well, I mean, with ROUSH, you're not only buying a product, but you're buying a lifestyle. You're buying into a family. I mean, our vehicles, whether it's truck or Mustang, are highly customizable. They don't look like anything else that's out there, especially with Mustang. That's the most customizable vehicle in our entire lineup. But people, when you buy something like that, you want to be part of the family. We have our ROUSH Road Crew Car Club, which is, a dedicated group of enthusiasts. They don't necessarily all own ROUSH vehicles. You could just like the brand and join the club. You can have, small aesthetic parts on your vehicle on your regular Mustang. I mean, we accept everybody. And that's just a whole lifestyle club that has exclusive events. They have little sneak peeks for things that are coming up. They've had different events privately with Jack. So in my opinion, that's pretty cool if you want to be in that little fraternity, if you will, of car enthusiasts on the ROUSH side. You're really buying into that. You're buying that lifestyle. Of course, you're buying the product, but in my opinion, kind of the perks that go along with that are pretty cool, and it just makes you feel, valued because we value everybody's business, but it's cool to have that, and we unlike most manufacturers, we sponsor that car club, that entity. It's not just so-and-so's, different regions or things like that. We sponsor it. We front the money for that to survive. So it's pretty cool. I've met a lot of interesting people through the road crew and different events throughout, the Midwest and my region. So, cool. I mean, but the customizability of the product is pretty cool, and being able to potentially go up to the plant and see the vehicle being built and things like that.
That's
definitely
really cool.
are someone to really get, the blood flowing for sure.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Awesome.
Wrap it up.
Yeah. Steve, is there anything that you want to plug in regards to your social or?
So you can follow. I'm Great Lakes ROUSH on Instagram and Facebook. I essentially do market for our dealers in the region here. Just a little bit different, more to the molecular level, if you will, outside of ROUSH Performance. Just fun for me. Yeah. Throw different content out there, different vehicles that are at different dealers, just essentially trying to bridge the gap between the consumer locally, if you will, and then the dealers that are here as well.
Your Raptor demo just got featured on like a big Raptor page, didn't it? Like Raptors of
Instagram. Yeah. Your Raptor.
Well, our Raptor, his demo. Yeah.
Instagram's where it's at, man.
Instagram is it.
I love that truck. It looks so cool. Like, I've gotten a lot of thumbs up on that truck down the highway. Like, people speeding up, and I'm like looking in the mirror, like, why is this guy level with me? For what reason? And then you look over, and they're just like, hey, waving at you and thumbs up here and there, and it's just pretty cool.
Did anybody at the because you drove it up to the sales meeting? Did anybody up there, the other REMs, say anything about it?
Oh, they all came out and looked at it.
Oh yeah,
everyone came out and looked at it. Oh, that looks really good, and they, everyone gave a positive.
They're all calling their dealer saying, I need you to put in a Raptor. I need a Raptor for my next demo.
Man, it's really a beautiful looking.
That's how it should look, honestly. I think full paint match is the way it should look.
I love the paint match.
I think it's awesome.
It looks great.
Yeah,
it looks really, really good.
All right. Well, we're going to wrap up here. Steve, as always, it's always a pleasure to see you. Thanks for coming into our podcast. I appreciate it. I know we've been talking about doing this for a while, so I'm glad we were able to connect and finally get it done. And we learned a lot about Roush. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Follow Steve on social media. Follow Roush on social media. Follow Lebanon Ford Performance on all of ours. And we'll be back next month with another podcast. Appreciate you guys tuning in.